and we were very happy to have him, and he's back this year. And he's a professor in the English department, and would you please give a hearty welcome for Daniel Compora, who's going to speak on. 41 years later, 1984 has arrived.
Okay.
Here's your
We're going to get this show started with a whimper and not a bang. So I'm going to talk about 41 years late, 1984 has arrived. Full disclosure, some of the images were generated with AI because I have a terrible eye for visuals, and I didn't want to get a copyright violation. So this front slide, I asked them to create a American dystopia, and I thought they did quite well. So anyway, okay, I wanted to start. Let me introduce this slide. This is the 1984 commercial by Apple that aired during the Super Bowl, and guess what year? 1984. And reason I'm starting with this is because I was just telling Michelle, I was one of these people, a little closer, okay. I was one of the people who graduated in 1983, and I was looking forward to 1984 because I actually thought it sounded really kind of cool. But I don't really think so anymore. And the Apple the Apple commercial that came out really kind of awakened me to what 1984 really meant. So let me just go ahead and play this for you. If you've not seen this, it's definitely an iconic commercial from the Super Bowl era. But 2025 is quite a bit like 1984. I'm going to show you in the ways that we've kind of gotten here. Now, first of all, I'm wearing a button that matches. I think that's really cool. It was banned. It was really hard to find really why it was banned. People just didn't like it, and but they found reasons to ban it. One of the reasons stated was its satirical approach to politics, the explicit sex scenes that are too risque for adolescents, and in the U.S. it was challenged for its pro-communist views, but in Russia it was banned for its anti-communist views. Racist language, and I put a couple examples there. That's been more of the recent reasons that it's been banned. And depiction of political oppression just makes politicians look bad. So that was one of the reasons. One of the reasons stated for its banning. Now, I'm not going to really do a big deep dive into the novel itself, but George Orwell was influenced by the rise of totalitarian regimes in the early 20th century, especially Nazi Germany, Stalinist Russia. And his time fighting in the Spanish Civil War influenced him as well, because then he worked for the BBC, in which he was a propagandist. So he was a lot of people don't know that, but he was actually involved in spreading propaganda as well as speaking out against it. Now, the context in 1984, 3 totalitarian states rule the world. The all-seeing party dominates a grimly uniform society in the bloc called Oceania, and that's one of the reasons I showed that picture. I thought it was a great, the video, I thought it was a great representation of what 1984 was depicting a world in which everybody was basically the same and controlled by the government. And the slogan that really comes up is Big Brother is watching. Okay. Modern day relevance as really censorship and truth manipulation. I'm going to give some real life examples of recent censorship and truth manipulation. We also have an immense loss of privacy in our country. And frankly, we've done this to ourselves. Every time you sign up for a Kroger card to get a discount or sign up at a restaurant to get a free breakfast, you've just given them your information and they can track you. What you spend, how often you come. And we've done this willingly. We don't need Big Brother. We've kind of been our own worst enemy on this stuff. And then, of course, totalitarianism and control, the control over our lives, but also our thought. Now, censorship and truth manipulation, the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. This is one of my favorite quotes from the novel. And we have examples of this today. State control of information. This is getting frighteningly more apparent as we get news stations that really just hew to one party line. And it's both sides are doing it. Okay, we are getting information that they want us to hear and in the ways that they want us to hear it. There's also the corporate influence on content. If you don't think corporate CEOs are influencing what we see, when we see it, the Super Bowl shows just how much money they're willing to spend to get a 30-second ad. And so corporations are basically running the world here, and we're letting them. And of course, online and offline censorship, and I have some examples of that. Now, the first one I'm going to start with to prove I'm not a partisan here. I'm going to attack both parties today, and this is talking about when Joe Biden, or as Kamala Harris would say, Joe Biden, he tried to censor Google. He tried to influence Google and social media platforms, especially with regard to COVID information. And so they were called out for this. It was covered in the news, but it was one of those things that flew a little bit under the radar because the narrative about Joe Biden was, they had other things to kind of go after him for. But he was, he did his share of attempting to censor and control the narrative. All politicians do. This is not a partisan issue. It's just they all do it. It's just a matter of whether or not we're aware that they're doing it, or do we self-select what we choose to gravitate to. And we do. We have what's called confirmation bias. We look for the messages that we like. But I'm going to go to the recent hubbub with Jimmy Kimmel, and just got a short clip here.
Even my old pal Ted Cruz, believe it or not, said something very beautiful on my behalf. I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired. No, wait, no, not that. The other part. But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying, we don't like what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives. I don't think I've ever said this before, but Ted Cruz is right.
Yeah, so that's just one example of the government acknowledging that this just isn't right. We need to stop, and it doesn't really matter what side of the political aisle you're on. It's just not good stuff. And I know that Joe Rogan is not known for being a flaming liberal, but he says, I definitely don't think that the government should be involved ever in dictating what a comedian can or cannot say in a monologue. So even prominent people on multiple sides of the aisle are saying, we can't have this type of thought control, yet we have examples of it showing up pretty regularly. 1984 talks about the rewriting of history. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Okay? This is another great quote that we've seen come to life in the real world.
Just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
I mean, it would be funny if it wasn't just so eerily echoing that passage from 1984. And here's another one, the infamous alternate facts.
Okay, so we're really dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains
Alternative facts. Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered.
Okay, I didn't know, I thought facts were facts, but I guess we do have alternate facts, so. But I'm more interested, if I'm being honest, the thing that affects me a little bit more than what our politicians say is this constant surveillance that we're under. And like I said, we've given away a lot of these freedoms just to get a free t-shirt, to have a Kroger card to get a discount. Anybody have a credit card here? Everything you buy is tracked on a credit card, so every time I waste money on something stupid, somebody knows it. Okay. What they do with that is they just kind of track us and they try to sell me stuff. I got in my car today and it said I was 22 minutes away from the University of Toledo. Okay. So we are being surveilled, and we've allowed this. And that's really, I think, what's frightening is just how passive we've become. A couple of really good quotes from the book are here. Big Brother is watching you. Winston kept his back to the telescreen. It was safer, though, as he well knew, even a back can be revealing. So pretty much, if they can see you, they know something about you. And I just thought, pretty dark quote, but it's kind of true. I think this is a clip from the TV show Person of Interest, because it talks about how we are being surveilled. Did anybody watch that show? It was about 7-8 years ago. I'm going to bring it up real quick.
Government has a secret system, a machine that spies on you every hour of every day. I know because I designed the machine to detect acts of terror, but it sees everything. Violent crimes involving ordinary people, people like you. Crimes the government considered irrelevant.
And that's all I really needed for that particular slide. Okay, this is the last one. Yeah, we'll see if we can get that a little bit louder. Yeah, that's what's on the way. I got you. Okay. So anyway, we have all this technology out, such as digital tracking, telemetry in your browser. Every time you click on something, in fact, my sons work for a company called Dynatrace, and their software tracks your mouse when you go to one of their clients is Walmart, and of course, Walmart pays for their software to see exactly how long you linger on an image, how where that arrow goes, and how long you stay on the page, and they collect all that data. And you know, what's funny is like ever since he told me that, I've been much more paranoid. It's like, not that I view anything, but it's just like it explains why if I look at something on Amazon, it shows up in my Facebook feed about 10 minutes later. There's also facial recognition. I don't think it's to this extent that the show Person of Interest was depicting, but we're getting there. We're getting there. It's not there now, but it will be at some point. And then, of course, data mining. I'm sure all of us have gotten those emails that say, we have had a data breach, and here we're going to give you 2 years free of identity monitoring. In order to get that, you have to enter in more personal information. It's a vicious cycle, it really is. But they use that fear to get us to kind of sign up for this stuff, and they kind of perpetuate their own data mining tactics. How close are we, though, to the world of 1984? As I had said, I was one of those weirdos who was kind of looking forward to it to see how close would we be. And quite honestly, in 1984, we weren't nearly as close as we are today. And that's what I found interesting. In that and to kind of to illustrate how close we are, Edward Snowden, if you guys are familiar with Edward Snowden, he was a whistleblower who was troubled by how much information the NSA was collecting on people. I mean, some people view him as a modern day Robin Hood, other people think he's just a downright criminal. But regardless of what you think about Edward Snowden, I think his message here is pretty clear. And I hope it's loud enough. I apologize, this is as loud as I can get it. So.
Together, we find that balance and mass surveillance. Informing the government wants to know how we feel. Asking is the always cheap smile. For everyone out there listening, thank you and Merry Christmas.
Okay.
The
So,
video was recorded in a secret location in Russia. Snowden's under temporary asylum. In a recent interview with the Washington Post, Snowden says his mission to expose government spying has already been accomplished.
wow, he had to go to Russia to speak out about American spying. I just think that whole situation is weirdly absurd, but also weirdly disturbing at the same time. When you're going to Russia to speak freely, it seems like we've done something a little bit wrong here. So. But cheer up, we're not there yet. Where do we go from here? I think it really depends on us. I think being vigilant, embracing your rights to read what you want, to say what you want, to visit whatever website you want, and to not be tracked. I think I have spent so much time just removing myself from lists because you don't realize how many lists, the minute you sign up for something, you become a commodity. And they're buying, selling, and trading your name and information, your interests, your age, your birthday to sell you more and more stuff and sell you ideology. So we're not there yet. I don't think the world will ever look like it did in the book 1984. But in some ways, it can be worse. And we've done this, like I said, we weren't really unwilling participants in granting the government the ability to censor us, to try to control our thought, and to try to track us. We've been complicit in our own misery here. But I don't think we're in an American dystopia. I'm optimistic that forums like this, educating people, and doing our part to ensure that people know they do have a voice, they do have a say, and they can determine where we go in the future. That is all I got. Did I leave enough time for questions?
Yeah.
Any questions for me? Yes, Keith.
What actions would you think we propose in order to mitigate the risks that we have in order to become more like YouTube? What could we do against this?
Well, I think the first thing that you have to do is just be aware of what you give away. Okay, I am just really shocked that when I looked at places, it's like, oh, I signed up for an account on this in 1999, and all of a sudden I'm in a data breach from something I forgot I ever signed up for. And I think that's just, you have to really, you have choices, and a lot of times you don't have to opt into stuff. The minute you don't check that, when you buy something and you hit that, you don't check they ask you to opt in. And the minute you do that, your information is going to be sold. Okay, how do you fight that? Well, you can probably not shop online, or you can just be vigilant about going in and deleting accounts you don't use, stuff of that nature. I think it's really just kind of looking at yourself and always assuming you're a target. And I hate to say it, it sounds paranoid, but I looked up, I've been in something like 70 data breaches in the last 10 years. I mean, that's insane. And I think that you risk identity theft, you risk all that stuff. I think that loss of identity for me is my biggest fear. I mean, I don't know why anyone else would want this, but they do. And just to protect yourself, I think that you have to kind of take a really narcissistic view of the world and say, I need to protect myself because other people aren't going to do it for me. And that's how I kind of treat my online persona and stuff like that. Not to even mention, if you tweeted something in 2004, it can come back to hurt you. And we've seen examples of that. I certainly didn't have time to cover all that, but that is a reality as well. Excellent question, Keith. Any others? There we go, Tom.
So, question about you had mentioned getting into your car and your car telling you you were only 27 minutes from the person. From your perspective, was there a certain point in time where we decided that convenience was okay? Like, is there a certain is there a landmark or event or something that happened that you could point to that would say we decided now that yes, we want more convenience but less privacy. We want to give up that right.
I would argue that that happened the minute the internet became a daily part of our lives. As far as one landmark, like one date, no, I don't think so. But I think the internet really launched this on the scale that it is today. It was much harder to data mine before the internet. You could just, you'd have to go steal someone's mail or something to get their information, or you'd have to somehow get a physical item. The internet just made it so easy to just take information. So, great question, though. 2 more minutes for questions. 2 minutes more. Hearing none, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of this festivities today. Don't forget to take up a free band book. And that's it. That's it for me.